Dominique Ashworth was 34 years old when she walked into Lumen Freight Corp with her husband's favorite lunch, 10 years of marriage, and no idea her life was about to end. Reginald's assistant waved her through, same as always. She'd earned that trust. She knew the building, the elevator code, the way he took his coffee. What she didn't know was that his office chair was already occupied. Ivy Callahan, 26, sat behind his desk with her feet propped up, laughing at something on his monitor, while Reginald leaned over her shoulder the way he used to lean over Dominique's. Neither of them noticed her standing in the doorway. 4 seconds. That's how long it took Dominique to understand everything. The canceled dinners, the guarded phone, the business trips. She set the lunch bag down gently, said she was just stopping by, smiled. Reginald had no idea what that smile actually meant. He was about to find out exactly what his wife was capable of. Before we dive in, comment where you're watching from today. And if stories like this speak to you, hit subscribe, because tomorrow's story is even more intense. The coffee maker beeped at 6:14 a.m. Dominique Ashworth was already at the counter. She moved through the kitchen the way she moved through most things, efficiently, quietly, ahead of the moment before the moment even arrived. The turkey sandwich was already cut. The apple was already sliced. She was on to the granola bar when her phone screen lit up on the counter beside her. Anniversary dinner, 1 week away. She looked at the reminder for exactly 2 seconds, then she swiped it away. The kitchen was beautiful in the early morning light, pale gold streaming through the windows, bouncing off the white quartz countertop she'd picked out herself 3 years ago. The kind of kitchen that showed up in design magazines. She'd made sure of that. She'd made sure of a lot of things. Marcus. She raised her voice just enough to reach the top of the stairs. 7 minutes, baby. I know, Mom, came the answer. He was 9. Old enough to be annoyed, young enough that it still made her smile. She tucked the granola bar into his lunchbox, the dark blue one with the soccer ball on the front, and mentally crossed it off the list in her head. A list no one could see but her, the one that ran on a constant loop. Marcus's lunch, his dentist appointment Thursday, Reginald's client dinner at Rosario's on Friday, the flowers for the centerpieces she still needed to confirm with the florist. She pulled up her email while the toast finished. Tucked between school reminders and a sale alert was a message she'd sent herself the night before. Notes for a small contract review she was doing pro bono for a woman named Cynthia Bright, who owned a catering company and was about to sign a supplier deal that had 2 clauses in it that would quietly gut her. Dominique had caught them in under 20 minutes. She'd been a contracts attorney once, a good one, the kind firms spent years trying to build. By 26, she was already on partner track at a firm downtown, already the youngest person in most rooms, already dangerous in the best way. Then Reginald needed her. It hadn't been a demand. It had never felt like a demand. His firm was young, his reputation still growing, and someone had to hold the rest of their life together while he built something. That was how she'd thought about it then, building something together. She'd stepped back, temporarily. That was the word she'd used in her head, temporarily. 8 years was a long time to mean something temporarily. She heard Marcus's feet on the stairs and turned, and caught her reflection in the glass of the cabinet beside the stove. Just a fraction of a second, just enough. Across the refrigerator, held in place by a small silver magnet, was a photo of her from her first year at the firm. 26 years old. Dark blazer, natural hair pinned back, chin slightly lifted. The way you hold yourself when you've worked for something and you know it. Her eyes had that look in them, sharp, alive, ready. She looked back at her reflection in the cabinet. The woman looking back wasn't old, she knew that. 34 wasn't old, but the look was different. Something behind the eyes had gone quiet. She wasn't sure exactly when it had happened. She just knew the photo and the reflection were not quite the same person. She looked away before she could think about it too hard. "Dad's not home again?" Marcus asked, dropping his backpack by the door and climbing onto a stool at the island. "He had an early call." She set his plate in front of him. "Eat." He did. No more questions. He was used to it. That was the part that sat wrong with her sometimes. Not that she was used to Reginald's hours, but that Marcus was too. The late nights, the weekends that disappeared into client obligations. The way his phone was always face down at the dinner table now, screen against the wood, the small buzz of it going unanswered until he excused himself to another room. 3 weeks ago, she'd picked it up by accident, thinking it was hers. He'd crossed the room faster than she'd ever seen him move. "That's my work phone, Dom." His voice had been light, perfectly light, just enough warmth to make her feel like the strange one for noticing. She hadn't asked again. The anniversary dinner he'd canceled twice now, the reservation at the little French place on Clement Street they'd gone to every year for the last 7. She'd rebooked it both times without comment. The second time, she told herself he was overwhelmed. Quarter end at Lumen Freight was always brutal. She believed it because she wanted to believe it, and she'd had a lot of practice believing what kept the peace. But he'd told her last night he'd be in Dallas on their actual anniversary, a supplier summit, unavoidable. She'd said she understood. She did, or she tried to. She was still thinking about it while she packed Marcus's bag, and then a thought moved through her. Small at first, then warmer. His favorite lunch. The banh mi from the place 2 blocks from his office, the one he said was the best he'd ever had. She could surprise him, celebrate a week early. He'd love that. She found herself smiling as she grabbed her keys. The lobby of Lumen Freight Corp smelled like cool air and fresh carpet, the way expensive office buildings always do. Clean in a way that felt deliberate, like comfort was part of the contract. Dominique pushed through the glass door and felt the familiar shift of it. She'd been in this building more times than she could count. Board dinners, holiday parties, the occasional Friday when she'd bring Marcus to see his father's name on the wall directory by the elevator. Reginald Ashworth, Chief Executive Officer. She'd watched that name go up. She knew what it had taken to put it there. Krista at the front desk looked up and smiled before Dominique was even halfway across the marble floor. "Mrs. Ashworth." Warm, easy. "Haven't seen you in a while." "Hey, Krista." Dominique lifted the brown paper bag slightly. "Surprise lunch." Krista laughed. "He's gonna love that. Go right up." She didn't need a badge. She didn't need to sign in. She moved through the lobby the way you move through a place that has always made room for you, past the security desk, into the elevator, up to the 14th floor. The lunch bag swung lightly from her hand. She was thinking about his face, the way he'd look up and realize what she'd done. He'd laugh, that real laugh, the one from before the late nights and the face-down phone. She was counting on that. The 14th floor was quiet for a Wednesday. A few heads down at desks, keyboards clicking, someone on a call behind a frosted glass wall. An assistant she didn't recognize looked up briefly as she passed, then looked back down. Dominique kept walking. The corner office was at the end of the hall, his name on a brushed metal plate beside the door. The door itself was open, just slightly. Not all the way, but enough. Light spilled out into the hallway. She could hear a voice, low, laughing. She pushed the door open. She registered the room before she registered the people in it. The wide mahogany desk, the city view stretched out behind it, gray and bright at the same time. The monitor turned at a slight angle toward the chair. Then she saw her. A woman she didn't know, young, polished, dark hair pulled into a low knot, sitting in Reginald's chair, not beside the desk, not across from it. In it. Her heels were propped up on the edge of the desk, ankles crossed, the posture of someone who had decided they belonged somewhere and stopped asking permission. She was leaning slightly forward toward the monitor, one hand loose in her lap, the other holding a pen she tapped against her knee like a metronome. And Reginald was leaning over her shoulder, not standing behind her to show her something, not hovering professionally. Leaning. The way you lean toward someone when you've stopped noticing how close you are. His hand rested on the back of the chair, just above her shoulder. His head was tilted down toward hers. He was saying something. She was laughing at it. 4 seconds. Dominique stood in the doorway for 4 full seconds, and neither of them looked up. 4 seconds was enough. She saw the easy tilt of the woman's head, the way Reginald's body angled toward her like a compass finding north. She saw the coffee cup on the corner of his desk with a coral lip print on the rim that was not her shade. She saw the way the woman reached up without looking and tapped the screen, and the way Reginald followed her finger like she was pointing at something they'd already agreed on. This was not someone showing the CEO a quarterly report. This was not a working meeting that had gotten comfortable. Dominique knew what this was, because she had been this once. The woman whose presence he rearranged himself around, the one he leaned toward. She remembered what that looked like from the outside. She was looking at it from the outside now. It was Reginald who finally glanced toward the door, a reflex probably, some edge of his attention catching movement in his peripheral vision. His body straightened, not all the way, just enough. "Dom." His voice came out smooth, practiced, the way he always found his footing fast. "Hey, what are you—" "I just wanted to drop off lunch." Her voice was calm, clear. She stepped forward and set the brown paper bag on the corner of the desk, away from the coffee cup with the coral lip print. Her eyes moved briefly to the woman in the chair, who had dropped her feet from the desk in one fluid motion, chin lifted, expression arranged into something neutral, something that was almost polite. And then Dominique looked back at Reginald and smiled. Not a hurt smile, not a shaking smile, just a smile. "Don't let it get cold," she said. She turned and walked back toward the door. Her heels were quiet on the floor. Her shoulders were straight. She did not look back. The elevator doors opened, and Dominique stepped out into the lobby like she was running an errand, like she had somewhere to be next. She kept her chin level and her pace steady, and she smiled once more at Krista on the way past, because that was the thing you did. You smiled. You kept moving. You did not fall apart in the lobby of a building with your husband's name on the wall. The parking garage was 1 level down, cool and dim and smelling of concrete and exhaust. Her heels clicked against the ground, the sound bouncing off the low ceiling. She found her car, a silver Audi, 4th space from the elevator, the same spot she always used, and she got in and she closed the door. The sound of the latch catching was very quiet, very final. She sat there for a moment with both hands on the wheel and the engine off. The garage was empty around her. A distant car started up somewhere on another level. The sound faded. Then she put her forehead down on the steering wheel and cried. Not loudly, not the way she would have at 22 or 25, when she still cried like someone expected to be heard. This was quiet and fast, and it moved through her like something physical. A wave that crested and broke and left her breathing in short pulls, eyes burning, jaw tight. She let it come. She gave it exactly 60 seconds. Then she lifted her head, pulled down the visor mirror, and looked at herself. Her mascara had tracked once beneath her left eye. She pressed the pad of her ring finger against it, blotted it clean. She looked at her reflection for a moment. Not the way she had this morning in the bathroom, not that slow, soft sadness. This was different. This was the look she used to give herself before walking into a deposition. Get your head straight. Get to work. She dropped the visor back up and reached for her phone. Terrence Boykin picked up on the second ring, the way he always did. "Dominique?" His voice was the same as it had been in law school, unhurried, like he had already accounted for whatever she was about to say. "I need to ask you something professional," she said. "Not personal. Professional." A beat. "Okay." If a wife, a joint account holder, wants to access shared financial records, bank statements, account activity, investment documents, can she do that without triggering any kind of alert to her co-holder? A pause, shorter than she expected. Depends on how it's structured, Terrence said. Joint accounts, generally, yes. Both parties have equal legal right to access records without notifying the other. Investment accounts vary. Is there a specific reason she'd be worried about him finding out she looked? Because, Dominique said, she just walked into his office and found a 26-year-old in his chair with her feet on his desk and her lipstick on his coffee cup, and he didn't even have the decency to look surprised. The silence on Terrence's end lasted exactly 1 second. "Where are you right now?" he asked. "Parking garage. I'm fine." "I know you're fine," he said simply. No fuss, no softness that would have annoyed her. "How long?" "I don't know. Long enough that he was comfortable. That's what it looked like. Comfortable." She said the word like it tasted bad. "I need to know what I'm actually dealing with before I say a single word to him. I am not walking into that conversation blind." "Smart." She heard him pull something, a drawer maybe, or a chair. "Don't touch anything yet. Don't move money, don't close accounts. Don't give him anything that looks like you're making a move. What you want to do right now is look. Pull everything you can legally access and document it. Statements, transfers, anything that feels like it doesn't belong. You still have access to your tax returns?" "Last 3 years in a file at home." "Start there. I want you to look for anything with an LLC name you don't recognize, any business expense account you've never seen a statement for, any address that isn't yours." He paused. "Can you do that without him noticing?" "Reginald hasn't been in the home office in 4 months, she said. "He doesn't know where the files are kept. He never did." "Then you're already ahead." Another pause, and when Terrence spoke again, his voice was level and careful. "Dominique, whatever this is, let's find out the full shape of it before we decide what to do with it. Don't let him know you know. Not yet." "I won't," she said. She meant it. They stayed on the line another few minutes, Terrence naming a few specific documents to look for, Dominique asking 2 precise questions about access rights for a jointly held brokerage account. And then she hung up and sat for a moment in the quiet of the garage. The attorney in her was already sorting, already building a mental folder, labeling things, looking for the edges of the shape Terrence had named. She could feel it, the old instinct clicking back into place like a joint resetting. She had missed it. She hadn't known how much. She started the engine and pulled out of the space. By the time she turned onto the main road, her hands were steady on the wheel. The city moved past the windows, gray and ordinary. "I built this life," she said aloud, to no one, to herself. "And I am not leaving empty-handed." Simone's home office smelled like coffee and printer ink. It was a small room at the back of her townhouse, the kind of room that meant business. No throw pillows, no candles, just 2 monitors, a long folding table covered in neat stacks of paper, and a whiteboard along one wall with numbers written in blue marker that Dominique didn't ask about. A second chair had been pulled up to the table. Simone had set it there before Dominique arrived. That was Simone. She didn't ask if you needed help. She just made room. "Sit," Simone said, handing her a mug. "Show me what you brought." Dominique set her bag on the table and pulled out 2 manila folders, a small accordion file, and a USB drive. 3 years of joint tax returns, 14 months of bank statements she had downloaded and printed without Reginald home, credit card records for 3 shared accounts, the business filing archive she'd found in the back of the home office drawer, still rubber-banded the way she'd organized it 4 years ago. Simone looked at the stack, then at Dominique. "Okay," she said. She picked up a highlighter and sat down. "Let's go." They started with the credit cards. Most of it was ordinary. Groceries, gas, the dry cleaner on 5th that charged too much and Reginald refused to switch. Dominique tracked each line with her finger while Simone cross-referenced the dates on a yellow legal pad. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. The room was quiet, except for the sound of pages turning and the occasional scratch of Simone's pen. It was Simone who found the first one. Here, she tapped a line with her pen. The Harlow Meridian, downtown, charged as Client Retreat, Q3 Entertainment, $460. She looked up. You know a client who stays at the Harlow Meridian? Reginald's clients use the Marquette, Dominique said. He's particular about it. He says the Marquette has better conference rooms. Simone made a note. She turned the page. There were 6 more, spread across 11 months, all labeled Client Retreat or Team Offsite or Q-Series Business Development, all billed to the same card. Different hotels, different cities. Dallas, Charlotte, once in Miami. The amounts were careful, never large enough to flag on a surface read, always just inside a round number. Someone had thought about that. Someone had been deliberate. Dominique wrote down every date. She already knew, somewhere in the back of her chest, what she would find when she lined them up against Reginald's travel calendar. She did it anyway, because she was building a record, not a feeling. 14 months, Simone said when they finished the cross-reference. Her voice was flat, precise. First charge is 14 months ago. Last one is 3 weeks before you showed up at that office. She set her pen down and looked at Dominique directly. This wasn't new. No, Dominique said. It wasn't. The phone plan was in the business filings. A second line, billed monthly to something called Caldera Solutions, LLC. The charge was small enough, $42, that it would have disappeared in a year of statements without anyone looking for it. Dominique had never heard of Caldera Solutions. It wasn't in any tax return she'd filed. Simone pulled up the state business registry on her laptop and typed in the name. The LLC had been registered 22 months ago. Single member. Registered agent listed was a corporate filing service, but the signature on the formation documents, the notarized signature certifying the registrant's identity, Simone turned the laptop to face Dominique. The signature was hers. Dominique stared at it for a long moment. Her own name in her own hand, the looping D, the way she crossed the lowercase I in the middle, the notary stamp beside it, dated 4 years ago. 4 years ago. She had been 7 months pregnant with their son, and her ankles had been swollen, and Reginald had come home with a stack of papers and said, "It's just refinancing stuff, boring. I just need you to sign where the tabs are." And she had signed because she was tired, and she trusted him, and he was her husband. She had signed a power of attorney. She had thought it was for the mortgage. He used it, Simone said quietly. It wasn't a question. Dominique didn't answer right away. She was looking at her own signature. She was thinking about the night she had signed it, the lamp in the living room, the way her back had ached, the way she'd laughed about something. She couldn't even remember what, some small, ordinary thing. She had been happy that night. She had trusted him completely. He had kept that signature. He had waited. He had built something with it, a shell company, a hidden phone line, a wall of paperwork between himself and consequences. And he had used her name to do it. Her hand, her trust, the version of herself that had believed the most in him. He forged me, she said. Her voice came out even, steady. She was a little surprised by that. Simone put her hand over Dominique's for just a second, then she let go. Dominique picked up her phone and called Terrence. He answered on the second ring. "I need you to formally trace an LLC," she said. "Caldera Solutions. And Terrence, I need you to find out if it connects to anything happening inside Lumen Freight." Terrence Boykin's office was on the 14th floor of a glass building downtown, the kind of building that meant serious money and serious work. No clutter, no soft edges, just clean lines, dark wood, and floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city like the whole thing was something you could read. He was standing at his desk when she came in. Papers spread across the surface in careful rows, a second monitor running a spreadsheet, a corporate filing open on the left screen. He had been at this for 3 days. She could tell by the coffee cups. "Close the door," he said. Dominique closed it and sat down. Terrence didn't ease into it. That was one of the things she had always respected about him. He gave you the truth like it was something you could handle. Caldera Solutions is a shell, he said. Thin walls, clean outside, nothing real inside. It holds one asset, that phone plan you found, but here's what it connects to. He turned the monitor toward her and pointed to a branching chart, blue lines running between boxes. Caldera was opened the same month Ivy Callahan was promoted to VP of Business Development at Lumen Freight. Dominique didn't move. That's not a coincidence, Terrence said. No, she said, it isn't. He walked her through it slowly, the way a good attorney walks a client through something complicated. Step by step, no leaps, every link documented before the next one. Ivy's promotion had come with a board sponsor. Someone had pushed her file through, flagged her as a strategic asset, put her in rooms she shouldn't have had access to yet. That someone was Reginald. He had done it 14 months ago, the same month the hotel charges started. But the board maneuvering, that had started even earlier. 18 months ago, Terrence said, Reginald began a slow restructuring of Lumen Freight's board seats. 2 independent director slots came up for renewal. He recommended replacements. He pointed to 2 names on a filing. Both of the replaced directors had been on the board since the company's founding. Dominique looked at the names. She recognized them. Howard Brough, Cynthia Dale. She had been at Howard's retirement party once, years ago. He had told her a story about her father, about a handshake deal made over bad coffee in a downtown office that had been the real beginning of Lumen Freight. She had smiled and not thought much of it. She was thinking of it now. Tell me about my father, she said. Terrence picked up a stapled document from the far right of the desk and held it out. It was an original investment record, 22 years old, printed on paper that had gone slightly yellow at the edges. At the top, Lumen Freight Corp., Founding Capital Agreement. 3 signatures at the bottom. One of them was her father's. Marcus Ashworth put in the first real money, Terrence said. Not seed money, foundational capital. He also brought in the first 2 clients, regional distribution contracts. Without those contracts, Lumen Freight doesn't survive its first year. He paused. Reginald was a 20-year-old junior manager who your father believed in. He gave him equity and a title. He made him. The room was quiet. Dominique turned the document over in her hands. Her father had died 3 years ago. A heart attack, fast, no warning. She had spent the year after it just getting through the days, handling his estate, comforting her mother, taking care of her son, and somewhere in the background, signing papers Reginald had placed in front of her. Refinancing papers. Boring stuff. He erased him, Dominique said. From every official history of the company, Terrence said. The website, the investor narrative, the press releases. The company's founding story now begins with Reginald Ashworth's vision. Marcus doesn't appear anywhere. Neither does the original capital structure. He sat down across from her. Howard Brough and Cynthia Dale both knew the real story. They were there. They were being pushed out because they remembered. Dominique set the document down. She had spent 10 years watching Reginald build his legend. She had helped him build it, writing remarks for events, coaching him before board dinners, managing the relationships that kept the right people in the right rooms. She had thought she was supporting her husband's success. She had been helping him bury her father. That thought landed somewhere deep and quiet and did not move. What does Ivy get out of it? She asked. The board seats being filled with her allies, Terrence said. When Reginald exits, whether that's retirement or a sale of the company or something else, Ivy is positioned to step into operational leadership. She's not just his girlfriend. She's his succession plan. Dominique sat with that for a moment. The affair was the part she could see. This, the erasure, the board, her father's name scrubbed clean out of the company's story. This was the part that had been designed not to be seen at all. She picked up her bag. I need to visit Patricia, she said. Terrence looked at her steadily. You sure about that? She's been his mother for 41 years, Dominique said. She knows things. She stood up. I'm going for a visit. Just family. Patricia Ashworth's house smelled like lemon polish and old wood. It always had. A two-story colonial on a quiet street in Briarwood, the kind of neighborhood where the lawns were always cut and the curtains were always clean. Patricia kept everything in its place. Always had. Dominique pulled into the driveway at 2 in the afternoon with Marcus Jr. in the back seat, still in his soccer cleats, chattering about a goal he had almost scored at practice. She let him finish the story before she unbuckled him. He deserved that. He deserved all of it, really. The full attention, the real laugh she gave him when he acted out the other kid's face, the hand she held as they walked up the front steps. She had called ahead. "Just a casual visit. I was in the area. Marcus Jr. wants to see you." Patricia had sounded pleased. That was good. The living room was exactly as it always was. Cream furniture, framed family photos above the fireplace, a small bowl of peppermints on the coffee table that Marcus Jr. went straight for. Patricia appeared from the kitchen in a pressed blouse, and for a few minutes it was ordinary. Marcus Jr. showing her something on his tablet, Patricia asking about school, the afternoon light coming soft through the front window. Dominique watched Patricia the whole time. There was something off in her posture, a tightness around her eyes, the way she laughed at Marcus Jr.'s joke a half-second too late, like her mind had been somewhere else and had to come running back. Patricia knew. Dominique had suspected it from the beginning. She just hadn't known what Patricia knew, or how much, or whether she would say anything at all. The woman had spent 41 years protecting her son. That kind of loyalty didn't break easily. But she watched the way Patricia looked at Marcus Jr., really looked at him, the way a grandmother does when she is thinking about more than just the moment, and she understood. She wasn't going to have to push very hard. She sent Marcus Jr. to the backyard with his tablet and a glass of lemonade. Patricia stood at the kitchen counter and didn't move to sit down. She kept her back half-turned, refilling her coffee cup even though it was still full. "Patricia," Dominique said. She sat at the kitchen table, hands flat, voice even. "How long have you known about Ivy Callahan?" The coffee pot went still. Patricia set it down slowly. She turned around. Her face had gone somewhere between ashamed and relieved, the way a person looks when they have been carrying something for too long and someone finally just asks. 7 months, she said. Dominique nodded. She did not react beyond that. "He told me it wasn't serious," Patricia said, "that it was already ending." She pulled out the chair across from Dominique and sat down, her hands folded on the table, tightly. "I believed him because I wanted to, and then I stopped believing him and I didn't know what to do with that." "Okay," Dominique said. "Dominique." Patricia stopped, started again. "There's something else." The kitchen was very quiet. Patricia stood up. She crossed to the far cabinet above the refrigerator, the one Dominique had never seen her open in 10 years of visits. She came back with a manila envelope. It was worn at one corner, like it had been handled and put back more than once. She set it on the table between them. "He had me witness a signature," Patricia said. 2 years ago, right after your father passed. He said it was refinancing paperwork. He said you were overwhelmed and he was handling it for you and he just needed a witness." Her jaw tightened. "I didn't read it. I should have read it. I signed the witness line and I told myself it was paperwork." Dominique looked at the envelope. She did not open it yet. "But you kept a copy," she said. "I took a photo of every page before I gave him the originals back." Patricia's voice was steady now, in the way that people get steady when they are past the part where they could still turn back. "I don't know why. Something felt wrong, and I kept it." Dominique opened the envelope. She read carefully. A former contracts attorney reads a document the way a surgeon reads a scan, line by line, looking for exactly where it goes wrong. She found it on page 3, a clause, buried in financial language, quietly adjusting the terms of their original prenuptial agreement. It rerouted her equity claim. It capped her settlement rights at a fraction of what the original contract had guaranteed. Her father had died on a Tuesday. This document was dated the following Friday. She had signed it 6 weeks later, during the worst stretch of grief she had ever walked through, believing it was a refinancing form. She set it down. not impulsive, not weakness, not even cruelty in the ordinary sense. This had been planned. He had waited for the right moment, when she was hollowed out, when her guard was down, when she would sign anything he put in front of her just to get through the day. And he had used it. He had used her grief like a tool. "Thank you," Dominique said. She put the document back into the envelope and folded the flap closed. Her voice did not shake. "I mean that." She stood up, called Marcus Jr. in from the backyard, and walked out the front door with the envelope under her arm. The offices of Boykin and Mercer sat on the 14th floor of a glass building downtown, quiet and deliberate, the kind of place where serious work happened without anyone raising their voice. Dominique had been here twice before, both times as a visitor. This time she came with a manila envelope, a flash drive, and a printed copy of her dormant law license application, already filled out. Terence met her in the conference room. 2 of his associates were there as well, both sharp and young, both introduced quickly and without fanfare. A whiteboard stood at one end of the table. On it, someone had already sketched the basic structure of the Shell LLC, the name, the registration date, the filing state. Dominique set everything on the table. "The forged signature is on the LLC's notarized formation document," she said. She did not sit down yet. She laid the pages out the way she used to in her old firm, organized, deliberate, each document its own lane. "The original power of attorney it was pulled from is here. I had it executed 7 years ago. You can see the signature drift when you put them side by side." Terence's younger associate leaned in. She looked at both pages for about 4 seconds. "That's not even a close copy," she said. "No," Dominique agreed. "It's not." Terence picked up the prenup amendment next. He read in silence, the same way Dominique had, carefully, without rushing. When he got to page 3, he stopped. "Dated the Friday after your father died," he said. "Yes." "And you signed 6 weeks later." "I thought it was a refinancing form." She finally sat down. "He brought it to me during a weekend when Marcus Jr. had a stomach bug and I had been up half the night. He told me it was the last of the estate paperwork and that he had handled everything else." Nobody at the table said anything for a moment. Terence set the document down. "Duress and fraudulent misrepresentation. The amendment is voidable. That's not even a hard argument. That's a straightforward one." He looked at her directly. "You know that." "I know," she said. "I wanted to hear it from you." He nodded. That was fair. That was exactly fair. The license reactivation took most of the morning. A meeting with the State Bar liaison, forms and fees, and a brief review of her continuing education hours from the contract consulting work she had been quietly doing for years without anyone calling it that. Her former supervising partner at her old firm, a measured woman named Carol Huang, had agreed to co-sign the reinstatement application and receive Dominique in her office with no drama and a single direct sentence. "I always thought you'd come back." Dominique didn't respond to that. She just signed where she needed to sign. By noon, the application was submitted. Back at Boykin and Mercer that afternoon, she laid out the second part. "My father's original investment in Lumen Freight was structured as a founding stake," she said. "Equity, not a loan. It was never bought out, never diluted. After he died, it transferred to his estate and then to me. It's sitting in the company's cap table. Reginald has just been counting on the fact that I wouldn't look." Terence pulled up Lumen Freight's filing history on his laptop. He scrolled through it, cross-referencing what she had. He didn't look surprised, but he went still in the way that sharp people go still when something confirms exactly what they feared. "You have shareholder rights," he said. "I have shareholder rights," she repeated, "including the right to request an annual family shareholder review. It's written into the original investment agreement my father's attorney drafted. She slid a copy across the table. I've already drafted the formal request. I want it filed for the same week as the investor gala. The associate with the sharp eyes looked up. That's the same week Reginald is presenting the board restructuring proposal to the full investor group. Yes, Dominique said simply. Terence looked at her for a moment, not with surprise, with recognition, like he was seeing something come back into focus that had been blurry for a long time. He didn't say anything about it. He just picked up the filing request and read it through. This is clean, he said. It should be. I drafted it myself. 3 days later, Reginald's attorney called hers, not yet knowing there was a hers to call, leaving a message at the wrong number, a detail Terence flagged and found quietly amusing. The formal divorce filing arrived by courier the following morning. Dominique signed for it herself. She carried it to the kitchen table, set it beside her coffee, and read the whole thing. The prenup amendment he believed she didn't know was fraudulent was cited in full. The LLC he believed was untraceable was listed among his assets. She read every page. Then she put it in the folder at the back of the file, the one labeled, simply, his version. The investor gala was in 11 days. The shareholder review was scheduled for the Wednesday of that same week. Dominique sat at her desk that evening, her presentation open on her screen, each exhibit numbered and indexed and cross-referenced to its source document. The forged signature, the prenup amendment, the board restructuring timeline, her father's founding stake, all of it laid out in order. She read through it once more, slowly. Everything was in place. The Meridian Hotel ballroom was dressed for importance. Tall floral arrangements lined the entrance, white tablecloths, soft light catching crystal glasses, the kind of room that told you, before anyone said a word, that the people inside it mattered, or at least believed they did. Dominique arrived at 7:15. She wore a deep navy dress, simple and precise, with her hair pulled back the way she used to wear it in court. No jewelry except her father's watch on her left wrist, a thin gold face, worn leather band, the second hand still ticking steady after all these years. She carried a slim leather portfolio under one arm. The woman at the check-in table found her name and smiled. Mrs. Ashworth, welcome. Ms. Ashworth, Dominique said pleasantly. And I'm here in my capacity as a Lumen Freight shareholder. I believe my legal representative already confirmed the designation. The woman blinked, checked her list again, and nodded. Yes, of course. You're on the shareholder roster. Thank you. She walked in. The room was full. 200 people, maybe more. Board members near the stage. Investors in clusters, drinks in hand. The comfortable hum of people who felt safe in a room like this. Waitstaff moved between tables with quiet efficiency. She saw Reginald before he saw her. He was near the stage, standing with 2 board members she recognized, laughing at something, at ease in the way he always was in rooms where he believed himself to be the most important person present. He had on his best charcoal suit. His cufflinks caught the light. Ivy stood 3 feet away, in a fitted black dress, holding a champagne flute, talking to a man Dominique recognized as one of the newer board members, the ones Reginald had positioned carefully over the past 18 months. Ivy's posture was relaxed. Her laugh was easy. She looked like a woman who had already won something. Dominique did not go to them. She found Wallace Greer first. Wallace was 71 years old and had known Dominique's father for over 2 decades. He was one of the 2 legacy investors Reginald had been working to push off the board. He stood near the back of the room with a glass of water, looking slightly apart from the crowd the way older men sometimes do at events like this, present but not fooled by the atmosphere. He saw her and straightened. Dominique. His voice was low and careful. I got your message. Then you know why I'm here, she said. He nodded slowly. He looked at the portfolio under her arm. Your father would have done the same thing, he said. She didn't answer that, but she held his gaze for a moment before moving on. The program began at 7:45. A moderator welcomed the investors, thanked the board, introduced Reginald, who took the small podium near the stage with the comfort of a man who had done this dozens of times. He spoke about growth projections, partnership opportunities, the company's direction in the next fiscal year. Dominique sat at a table near the center of the room and listened to every word. When he finished and the applause settled, and before the moderator could move to the next item on the agenda, Dominique stood up. Her voice was clear and calm. "I'd like to exercise my right to address the room, please. As a named shareholder under the original Lumen Freight Founding Agreement, Section 4, Article 2, the right of address at any annual investor function." The moderator looked uncertain. Reginald looked up from the podium. For a half-second, he went completely still. His eyes found her face. Then he smiled, the practiced, easy smile she had watched him use on difficult clients for a decade. "Dominique." His voice was warm, just slightly amused. "This isn't really the venue for a family." "This is exactly the venue," she said. Not loud, not sharp, just steady. "I'm not here as your wife. I'm here as a shareholder. Those are different things. The agreement your founding attorney drafted recognizes that distinction." She opened the portfolio. "I'll be brief." The room had already gone quiet, not the polite quiet of a pause, the taut quiet of people sensing that something real was happening. She set the first document on the table in front of her and held up a clean copy for the room to see. "This is the formation document for Meridian Logistics Partners, LLC, a shell company formed 14 months ago, currently holding Lumen Freight assets. On page 2, you'll find a notarized signature attributed to me. I did not sign this document. The signature was lifted from a power of attorney I executed 7 years ago during my pregnancy. I have both documents here. A forensic handwriting analysis, conducted independently and available in full to any board member who requests it, confirms the forgery." She set that copy down, picked up the next one. "This is a prenuptial amendment, signed by me approximately 6 weeks after my father's death, while I was managing his estate and a sick child. I was told it was a refinancing form. It was not. Under state statute, a contract signed under fraudulent misrepresentation is voidable. My attorney has already filed the appropriate challenge." She set that down too. The third document was a timeline, clean, printed, each entry sourced and dated. "And this details the systematic effort over the past 18 months to remove Wallace Greer and Thomas Finch from the Lumen Freight Board." She looked up. "Both men represent the founding investment made by my late father, Arthur Reed, without which this company would not exist. His contribution has been erased from the company's public narrative. The documentation showing his original founding stake is also in this packet." She closed the portfolio. "Everything I've shown you tonight has a corresponding source document. I am prepared to provide the full file to the board immediately." Ivy had stopped speaking. Her champagne flute was still in her hand, forgotten. Her expression was no longer easy. Reginald had stepped away from the podium. His smile was gone. There was nothing behind his face now, just the particular blankness of a man watching something he built come apart, and not yet understanding how fast it was moving. The room was silent. Then Wallace Greer set down his glass of water, buttoned his jacket, and looked at the moderator. "I'm calling for an emergency board session," he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried. "Tonight, before anyone leaves this building." The moderator looked at the board members near the stage. One by one, they nodded. The emergency board session was held in the 4th-floor conference room. No catering, no soft lighting, just the long mahogany table, the overhead fluorescents, and 12 people who had just watched everything change. Dominique sat near the middle of the table. Terence sat beside her, a second copy of the full evidence packet already open in front of him. She had called him the moment Wallace Greer spoke up in the ballroom. He had been in the building within 20 minutes. Reginald sat at the far end, flanked by the company's general counsel, a cautious man named Arthur Price, who had spent the first 10 minutes of the session reading the forged LLC documents with the quiet focus of someone trying to calculate exactly how much trouble he was in by proximity alone. Ivy was not in the room. She had been asked, politely but firmly, to wait outside. The board's lead independent director, a woman named Carol Dunham, ran the session. She was 63 years old and had no patience for theater. She read through Terrence's forensic summary without speaking. When she finished, she set the pages down flat and looked at Reginald directly. "Do you dispute the handwriting analysis?" Reginald's jaw tightened. "I think this warrants a more careful process before anyone makes—" "Do you dispute the handwriting analysis?" Carol said again. A silence settled across the table. Arthur Price leaned over and said something quietly into Reginald's ear. Reginald said nothing. Carol looked at the rest of the board. "Then we proceed." The vote for immediate suspension took 11 minutes. It was not close. Pending a full fraud investigation into the forged LLC filing and the unauthorized use of Dominique's notarized signature, Reginald Ashworth was suspended from his role as CEO of Lumen Freight Corp. With immediate effect. His access to company accounts, systems, and communications was revoked before the session ended. Carol Dunham signed the order herself. The forged LLC filing, a document bearing Dominique's signature on an asset transfer she had never agreed to, put Reginald in range of criminal liability. Terrence had already been in contact with the state's attorney's office. That process was now out of Dominique's hands and into someone else's. She had known it would come to this. She had built the case to make sure it did. Reginald looked across the table at her when the vote was read aloud. His expression was hard to name. Not grief, not regret, something closer to disbelief. The look of a man who had spent years believing he was the smartest person in any room he entered, and was only now starting to understand what that had cost him. Dominique looked back at him and said nothing. The prenup mediation happened 3 weeks later in a quiet office on the 14th floor of a building 6 blocks from the courthouse. It did not take long. The amendment Reginald had handed her 6 weeks after her father's death, the one disguised as a refinancing form while she was exhausted, grieving, and running an estate alone, was voided on the grounds of fraudulent misrepresentation. Terrence had prepared a thorough brief. The mediator needed less than an hour. Without the amendment, Dominique's original protections stood, and because her father, Arthur Reed's founding equity stake had never been legally diluted, a fact Reginald had obscured but never formally eliminated, she retained a share of Lumen Freight's value that Reginald had long assumed was his to negotiate away. He had never bothered to check. He had assumed she wouldn't know to look. That was always the thing about being underestimated, Dominique thought as she signed the final settlement page. People forgot that the person they were underestimating had been watching them the entire time. Ivy Callahan was terminated from Lumen Freight the same week the board voted. The termination letter cited her role in the unauthorized boardroom restructuring and her documented coordination with Reginald on the LLC formation. The industry relationship she had spent 2 years building through Reginald's position evaporated quickly once the fraud exposure became known. The investors she had charmed at galas stopped taking her calls. The board members she had cultivated showed no loyalty. People who climbed on someone's coattails, Dominique had always known, never earned real allies. Dominique had said nothing publicly about Ivy. She hadn't needed to. The documents had done it for her. Patricia Ashworth called Dominique the morning after the board session. Her voice was different than Dominique had ever heard it. Not soft exactly. Patricia had never been soft, but there was no armor in it. "I should have said something sooner," Patricia said. "You said it when it mattered," Dominique answered. Patricia asked about her grandson. They talked for 40 minutes. At the end of the call, Patricia said she would be at Dominique's side in family court if it came to that. It was the most she had ever offered in 10 years. Reginald called once. Dominique let it go to voicemail. She listened to it in her car, engine off, parked in front of her sister Simone's house. His voice was measured, controlled, still performing, even now, for an audience of one. He said he thought they could handle things quietly. He said he hoped she understood that everything he had done was for the family. He said he was sorry she felt the way she did. He did not say he was sorry for what he had done. She deleted the message and went inside. 2 days after the mediation concluded, Dominique returned to the Lumen Freight building for the last time to retrieve the original documents she had deposited with the board under filing receipt. The lobby felt smaller than she remembered, or maybe she was just seeing it differently now. The woman at the front desk greeted her with a careful smile. The building was quieter than usual, the kind of quiet that follows a disruption, when people are still figuring out what is safe to say out loud. Dominique took the elevator to the 4th floor, signed for her documents, and rode back down. Reginald was standing near the lobby entrance when the elevator doors opened. He looked like a man waiting for something. She wasn't sure what. His posture had lost its ease. The charcoal suit was the same, but it wore differently on him now, like a costume he had forgotten how to carry. He saw her. He opened his mouth. "Dominique." "I hope you find somewhere to be," she said simply. Not cruel, not warm, just true. She walked past him and through the lobby doors and out into the pale morning light, her father's watch steady on her wrist, the leather portfolio under her arm, her footsteps even on the pavement. She did not look back. He was still standing there when the door closed behind her. 18 months later, the nameplate on the door read, Ashworth Reed, D. Partner. Dominique had kept both names. She had thought about it carefully, the way she thought about everything now. Ashworth because it was her son's name, and she would not erase that. Reed because it was her father's name, the one she had quietly set aside when she became a wife, the one she was taking back. The office was on the 9th floor of a glass building in the financial district. Clean lines, good light, a desk that was hers, stacked with files that were hers, in a career that was entirely, completely hers. She set her coffee down, hung up her coat, and sat. Her first appointment was at 9. A woman named Delphine Okafor, a small business owner, mid-40s, who had signed a contract she didn't fully understand and was only now realizing what it had cost her. Dominique had taken the intake call herself last week, something the other partners teased her about, gently. "You don't have to do your own intake anymore," Terence had told her. "I know," she had said. "I want to." She knew exactly what it felt like to sign something you trusted without reading it close enough. She was not going to let anyone come through her door feeling alone in that. Her son Marcus was 12 now. Tall in a way that still surprised her sometimes, with a gap-toothed smile he had not yet grown into. He had adjusted to the new apartment better than she had expected, better, honestly, than she had. He asked about his father sometimes, carefully, the way children do when they sense a topic has weight. She answered honestly, in ways appropriate for his age, without editorializing. He deserved the truth, shaped for his years, not her grief. He had started a robotics club at school that fall. He had won his first regional competition 6 weeks ago. She had been in the front row, holding a handmade sign Simone had insisted on making, laughing too loudly when his team's prototype crossed the finish line. Life had made room for joy again. She had been surprised by that, and then she had stopped being surprised. The meeting with Callaway and Vance, a competing logistics firm 3 blocks from Lumen Freight's headquarters, was scheduled for 2 o'clock. She left the office at 1:45, portfolio under her arm, heels quiet and even on the sidewalk. The walk took 11 minutes. She passed Lumen Freight's building at the 7-minute mark. The silver letters above the entrance caught the midday sun the same way they always had. The lobby was visible through the glass doors. Same reception desk, same wide marble floor. A courier was heading inside. A group of junior employees in lanyards spilled out through the side entrance, laughing about something. Dominique's stride did not change. Not because she had forced it, not because she was performing composure for anyone watching. The building simply did not pull at her anymore. It was glass and steel and someone else's story. She had already taken from it everything that was rightfully hers. She passed it. She kept walking. The meeting at Calloway and Vance went well. She had expected it to. She had prepared the way she always prepared now, thoroughly, without rushing, trusting the work. She was back at her desk by 4. Terence knocked on her open door at past. He had a coffee in each hand, which meant he had something to talk through. She gestured at the chair across from her. "Delphine Okafor," he said, settling in. "How'd it go?" "She has a case," Dominique said. "Misrepresentation in the termination clause. Whoever drafted that contract was counting on her not reading it carefully." "They usually are." "They're usually wrong." Terence smiled. He took a sip of his coffee. He did not say anything else, and he did not need to. This was what it looked like between them now. Two people who respected each other's minds, working beside each other, comfortable in the quiet. At 6, after Terence had gone and the floor had emptied out, Dominique sat alone at her desk for a moment before packing up. The city moved outside her window. The last of the sunlight was going flat and golden against the buildings across the street. Her coffee cup was cold. Her calendar showed tomorrow's first appointment at 8:30. She looked at the nameplate on her door from where she sat. Ashworth Reed, D. Partner. She thought about the woman who had stood in front of a bathroom mirror at 6:15 in the morning, looking at a photograph of herself at 26, and wondering where she had gone. She thought about a parking garage, and a moment of tears, and a phone call that had started all of this moving. She thought about her father's equity, her own forged signature, a prenup signed in grief, and a lunch bag set down on a desk in a room where she should have mattered more. She had built a life for someone else. She had watched him take the credit. She had gone quiet when she should have been loud. She was not quiet anymore. She was not invisible anymore. She picked up her bag, turned off her desk lamp, and walked out. Thank you for watching until the end. If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I've got 2 stories on the screen that you have to watch next. Have a great day.